pre-production, which means I'm finishing writing it. And then, in the meantime, I was chosen to do this, which I just love. I've showed up at all the performances at the Chateau so far, and just had such a great time. I'm going to open up though. I'm going to start back kind of where I started, on the mean streets of Butte. I cut my teeth at the Silver Dollar and the coffee houses here in town, performing sort of folk style songs. And one of the first ones I ever wrote was called Talkin' Butte Special Blues. And it's in kind of in honor of Butte Special, which is what my grandfather used to call nuts. And he was a veterinarian that had a veterinarian's clinic down on Harrison Avenue for many years. His name was Doc Smith, is what he was known as in town. Really interesting guy. He used to work with lower income families, and he would do bartering for services, just because he felt so bad for the low income people and the pets and everything. And he also worked some at the cattle ranch out by Ramsey as well. But anyway, in honor of him, I'm going to do one of my very first songs I ever wrote, Talkin' Butte Special Blues. This is the talking blues, which you typically hear. Woody Guthrie was real famous for doing these. Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan did some later on. They're mostly 3 chords. They're not very musically complicated, which is why it's always a really great idea if you ever want to try songwriting, to start with the talking blues. You only have to know 3 chords really. And there's always punchlines. There's punchlines throughout the song, so they're really fun to play. Anyway, here's Talkin' Butte Special Blues. I came across a disgusting beast. It was running down Excelsior Street and stopped me flat at my feet. Uglier than anything I've ever seen. It was loud and running with a full head of steam. I came across a true 4-legged tree. Starting with the hungry growl, it circled around its next feast. Fearless it began to howl, waking creatures as far as Butte East. The canine wasn't a soul but a breed, scared of no catcher and always controversial. Other animals die on this dog's feet. You never forget your first Butte Special. Special roads, even on the coldest, darkest night of resounds. An old cowboy draws a gun out of his holster, but it takes more than that to scare a Butte Special. A Butte Special is the mangiest smell. You can't tell it from the bark, but from the attitude of the dog. It doesn't ever wear a collar, nor is it seen with its owner. A Butte Special is found digging in garbage, and its fur is the roughest of roughage. The savage that swims in the Berkeley pit also laps up water in Silver Bow Creek. Any dumb dog lover can have his pick, but a Butte Special makes most people sick. With the stench and never ceases. 2 legs, 3 legs, horns ain't surprises. Running in one in the dark alley on a night like tonight, and you're in a state of crises. The only place where dogs are king is high up in the mountains. Canines going to find their own 7th heaven. It's more like hell where every dog's a brute. The mangiest mutts in the world find their home within the city of Butte.
right when she gave up.
I still have a few songs before we need it, so we'll
Okay,
get that.
can I introduce
I'm trying to, okay, yeah.
He's always chomping at the bit like a racehorse out of the gate before I can even introduce the project. Thanks for coming, everybody. My name is Carrie Coe. I'm program director at the Clark Chateau, and Sean Eamon is our next musician as part of our New Songs for Butte Mining Camp Project. So we've been able to commission, it will be a total of 14 musicians to take old Butte mining and labor songs and reinvent them in their own unique style. And they'll give a brown bag talk here and then a full concert at the Clark Chateau the next day, and we'll record their song. We got a National Endowment for the Arts grant for 10 of these musicians, and Sean's the first musician on that grant to perform. So we're very happy to have you.
I am going to have more of a full band with me tomorrow night as well. You guys are getting the toned down version of just me right now. I'm going to have some horn players and a drummer with me, and a guy that plays bass. It'll be pretty fun. I wanted to go from that one of the first songs I wrote to a more recent one, which was actually like a huge inspiration on why I chose the song that I picked. The original song I picked is a song that's about sleeping in early. And I wrote this song a couple falls ago, and coincidentally enough, I got in trouble at work for sleeping in. It was the art became reality, or art became life, as they like to say. I host this program on KBMF called Boomer Radio on Saturdays at high noon. It sort of revolves a lot around rural music and classic country music and stuff. So I've been playing this stuff on the radio and really soaking it in, trying to write songs like that. And that's kind of what this, the sound of this is, and a lot of the stuff I've been doing. This is called Getting Down Early. Lighter, a cigarette, I guess these are tools of the trade. A ride filled with heartache, half empty whiskey today. I can't even get lucky enough to get a seat by the window pane. Stuck in the aisle where the view never does change. Stuck with a long list of lovers that left me in vain. Whenever they see me, they whistle if I only had a brain. I can only remember the times when things weren't the same. Getting down early, waking up late is my name. Getting down early, waking up late is my name. All these women that left me never even gave me my change. I guess I should have known this was always my fate. Just getting down early and waking up late is my name. Never on time, even with a big old head start. I'm always nearby, even though I'm feeling so far. So far from the truth that I stumble back into the dark. It's nighttime again, so you know I'm hitting it hard. Getting down early, waking up late is my name. All these women that left me never Getting down early, waking up, Ray is my name. For sort of fun on this, I went back and learned a really old song. Everybody's heard this song about a million times. You can feel free to sing along if you want. The purpose was I started looking at these old songs and thinking about why don't people play this anymore. This song gets played constantly though, but I never hear people perform it as a thing. Like I was watching the Super Bowl, probably the last place you would ever have expected this song to show up. It was played in the background of an ad during the Super Bowl. And of course the song is Big Rock Candy Mountain, which is a song very reminiscent of Butte, empathetic towards the hobo culture. It has some of the greatest imagery in lyric writing of any song I think ever written. I believe Harry McClintock wrote it. We all like the joke, Woody Guthrie wrote that, didn't he? Woody Guthrie. I don't even know if he ever played it. But I just want to throw back one of these old ones just so you guys can see that I play some other music besides songs that I write. I'm headed for a land that's far away, beside the crystal fountain. So come with me and we'll go see Big Rock Candy Mountain. In the Big Rock Candy Mountain, there's a land that's fair and bright. Handouts grow on bushes, and you sleep out every night. The boxcars are empty, and the sun shines every day. Oh, the birds and the bees and the cigarette trees and the lemonade springs and the bluebird sings on the Big Rock Candy Mountain. The Big Rock Candy Mountain, all the cops have wooden legs. Bulldogs all have rubber teeth, and the heads they soft-boiled eggs. Farmers' trees are full of fruit, and the barns are full of hay. Oh, I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow, and there ain't no fall, and the wind don't blow in the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Big Rock Candy Mountain, you never change your socks. Little streams of alcohol come a-trickling down the rocks. The brakemen all have to tip their hats, and the railroad bulls are blind. There's a lake of stew and whiskey too, and you can paddle all around it in a big canoe in the Big Rock Candy Mountain. In the Big Rock Candy Mountain, the jails are made of tin. You can walk right out and back again as soon as you are there. There ain't no short-handled shovels, no axes, saws, or picks. Oh, I'm gonna stay where you sleep all day, where they hung the jerk that invented work in the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Oh, I'll see you all this coming fall in the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Thank you. Now the thing that we were having the difficulty with that kind of through the beginning of this, a little off kilter. I want to try to load up this Harry Lauder song so you guys can hear it before I play my version of it. And of course I'm going to talk about him a little bit. Does anybody here know who Harry Lauder was? Just out of curiosity?
No.
Not even John? You never heard of him?
Quiz.
Harry Lauder was a famous comic singer from the 1910s. Arguably the first big superstar in music. And what he was sort of a caricature of a Scotchman. So he, he sang these comedic ballads with with that Scottish R, full Scottish accent, maybe emphasized even more. And he would perform at big theaters around the world. You know, he had a part-time home in Australia. He obviously started out in Scotland. He started out in Scotland. He was a miner before his music career even began, and he was nearly killed because there was a collapse in a mine that he was scheduled to work in that day. And then later on, probably the thing that maybe he's most known for, besides the music he's pretty well known for, but he was a big advocate for peace. And he was the first guy that started those, I forgot the term again, when they do these sort of charity shows for soldiers at war.
USO
show. He was doing USO shows for England, and he was eventually knighted for his performance and his contribution towards doing that. But in the meantime, he actually performed in Butte. And he had one of the melodies from this book that we have up here. Maybe we should pass it around now so people can see. One of the melodies from the songs in this book was there was actually multiple. And I think I know the guy who wrote it. I'm going to talk about him in a second too. I think I know who the gentleman was that wrote the lyrics. What they were songs that were standard songs that most people knew the melody to, and they would rewrite the words to it. That's what this book is that you guys will have. Carrie probably knows a little bit more than I do, as much as I looked at it.
About the book? Well, it was just published around 1917, 1918 by the industrial workers of the world with very radical lyrics, trying to organize people. I think the hope was that they would become protest songs in the mines and spread the union effort.
It's a super cool book, and they made it real small. At the time, the thing was that you could fit it in a pocket, right? The IWW book, I believe, is the same way. They're printed really small so that you could fit them in your pocket in case the sing-along happened. At any moment, you never know. I mean, imagine the old streets of Butte, we had tens of thousands more people than we have now. It probably did happen more than we could imagine. One of the first things I printed off here, I probably should have just set a table up. It's a picture of Harry Lauder with Charlie Chaplin. Super interesting because Charlie Chaplin was also, a famous resident of Butte at one time. He started, I'm not sure if he started his acting career, but a period of it was here in Butte. And I printed off some reviews and previews of Harry Lauder shows.
You want to pass it around?
And yeah, sure. Some of the stuff is. I spilled tea on it if you want. I drink tea in the morning and I was probably getting excited. This old story from 1909. This was before his first performance in Butte. And it's interesting, the opener was Julian Eltinge. Does anybody know Julian Eltinge? Julian's Bar, of course, was named after this. It was a cross-dressing performer in Butte back in the 1910s that was, at least nationwide, if not worldwide, did solo performances, but he would dress like a woman and do solo performances. The quick piece on Julian in this preview was accompanying the great entertainer is Julian Eltinge, the feminine impersonator whose skill in dancing had won him an international reputation. At one point in this preview from '09, they say, the coming of Lauder signifies the appearance of the highest salaried artist on the world stage that year. Which I think he was. They published his salaries and everything back then. I think he wanted people to know, like, it built the reputation. And here's a review from that show, or this was a show just a little bit later, in 1910, which had some of the same performers. Julian Eltinge was in there. And it says, earlier on in this review, it says, he had remarks that were in very poor taste because he thought he should have been in the biggest theater in Butte, which at the time was the Broadway. He was at the second biggest theater, probably. It says, Lauder was splendid, excellent, irresistible. The audience laughed before he delivered his jokes. He would stop in the middle of a story before he had reached the point, and by some motion of the hand or trick of the voice, he would send his listeners off in spasms of mirth. The language in these is really good. His tones were absolutely pure, and his voice possessed unusual color and richness. And they put this part about this opening act, and I love this. Cyrano, the juggler, opened the show. He was nervous and dropped his properties several times. He abandoned several difficult tricks. Nevertheless, he was very good. Back in the day, jugglers would open shows. El Tinge, the Butte boy in feminine characterizations, was also highly appreciated. He took off his wig when he had finished and made a little speech in which he told the size of his corsets. I love this because I went down this rabbit hole searching Harry Wilder, and I came across like Julian El Tinge and all these old characters. Such a beautiful thing. There was another performance that he had. This was after World War I. He had a son that died in World War I, so he became, he was pretty much anti-war. He wanted people not to go to war anymore, but he would support the troops as much as he could with those shows that he was doing. It's a review where he breaks down crying on stage because he met a father of a fallen soldier from Butte before the show, and he got too emotional when he got up on stage, which was really kind of a beautiful human moment that he had here. It was from a performance in Butte and everything with Wilder. I have some really cool old ads and stuff. I'm going to send these around. He was signed to probably, I mean, there was only a few record labels back then because they had to be big companies to make the record players, right, the phonographs. He was on Victrola. He had a big recording contract with them. From everything that I understood, it sounded like Butte was a favorite place of his to come because he came back multiple times. There's another one here with an ad where they're selling the records. Goes pretty good with that one. And there's a beautiful, like, kind of caricature, hand-drawn comic. Wilder was real famous. One of his signature things was he had this crooked stick. You can see it in this picture here, which is the video I'm going to play. And the story was, so, at least the way I'm telling it today, this gentleman named Scotty is credited with writing the lyrics for that song. And when I was here during my research, I did a bunch of research because I already pretty much knew which song I was going to do. We'd already done a bunch of work on this. I wanted to include horns on my recording. Just sort of because I'm friends with horn players and because old music back then had horns in it. It was a much more regular instrument than the typical guy with a guitar like you see like me today. This gentleman named Norman Weil, he was known as Scotty in some newspaper clippings, and he was a comic song performer. And he had moved to Butte from Cornwall in 1897 and lived in Walkerville. I found his old, they did a public obituary for him, and he was a retired surface foreman for Anaconda Mining Company. But there was tons of stuff, I didn't even print it all out. He was a member of St. George's, the Sons of St. George. I'm sure some of you guys know that. It was like an English organization, kind of like Ancient Order of Hibernians. This was the English version of that here in Butte. And I could never completely prove that Norman Weil was Scotty, but the fact that he was a comic song performer, he was involved in all kinds of civic organizations, and he worked in the mines. A lot of the songs that were written by him in the book, in that old 1917 Songs for New Butte Mining Camp book, New Songs for Butte Mining Camp book, were English and Scottish songs that he had picked. I know I'm getting some problems up here on this. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to play it on my phone for you guys. Anyway, I have some stuff on him. I don't know if anybody really wants to see or not. There's tea spilled all over this too. But he was a winning comic song performer.
It's back.
You just have to run away from it.
A winning comic song performer. And out of all the people I searched, I thought, who could it be? His age fit perfectly. He was 42 the year that the book was published in 1917. There's just like a lot of things sort of direct towards, he was probably the author of those songs, I think, of the lyrics of those songs, not the actual melody and everything. We'll take a listen to Harry Wilder, and feel free to laugh because his recordings are hilarious. He's a great listen. Let's hope this works. If it's a plays an ad, I'm going to try and mute it though, because I hate ads. One of the other things about Wilder too, before I go on, he performed with a bagpipe group and a horn section. That's how big. He had his own train cars on the trains that he traveled in across the country. We're going to go and I'm going to talk a little bit about trains in a little bit too. I have a bunch of family history here on the Anaconda Pacific that I researched while I was here as well.
Oh, you'll never, never, never cry lying in your bed. Early rising makes it wise, I've often heard it said. I believe in that myself, but as far as I can see, that if early rising makes it wise, you'll say the same as me. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning when the sun begins to shine. It's 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the good old summertime. Or when the snow is snowing and it's murky overhead. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning, but it's nicer to lie in your bed. Oh, my brother Jock's a baker, and he sleeps along with me. And the winter morning Jock is to rise and start his work at 3. And before he gets his trousers on, his legs are nearly numb. So while he stands shivering, I lie in my bed in a hum. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning when the sun begins to shine. It's 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the good old summertime. Or when the snow is snowing and it's murky overhead. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning, but it's nicer to lie in your bed. Aye, aye.
He does these speaking
Still, I
passages
will
on
say
the
this,
record.
and this is that. I have no objection to any man rising at any hour in the morning, as long as he has got something particular to do. For instance, now a chap goes to his bed at night. Well, that's the very last thing he does. And he happens to wake him about 2:30 or 2:45, and he's lying there in his bed, nothing to do, simply lying looking at the roof, wasting his time. Or suppose you have some relations, and have been living with you for a month. I think that's the limit, isn't it? I can hear how some of you had some. Well, you're all seated round the supper table. There you are, sitting there, talking and speaking to one another. And one of your relations just happens to hint that they'll be going soon. I must tell you, I must tell you this, though, man, on the quiet, you all know it as well as me. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning when the sun begins to shine. At 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock in the good old summertime. Or when the snow is snowing and it's murky overhead. Oh, it's nice to get up in the morning, but it's nicer to lie in your bed. Aye, and that's the truth.
All right, that's
That's great.
very theatrical performer, right? Scotty took that song and wrote lyrics to that melody about the. It's a union song essentially. It's mostly about solidarity. It doesn't mention Butte at all, but very, I think, relative to the times and everything going on at that time. Get my pick here. A big help on the arrangement of this was Garrett Smith. He couldn't be here today. Another one of the guys had a show at the Vigilante Music Festival that I work with. Justin Ringsack, who's from Butte, will be performing with me tomorrow. He'll be playing trumpet on this track. And the song is called Solidarity, not to be mixed up with Solidarity Forever. I was really worried when I told Carrie, the song is called Solidarity, but it's not Solidarity Forever. Because that is a really well-known old Union anthem. Solidarity, though, of course, we're arranging it with horns with a giant bugle. which I have no idea how Garrett got. And Justin's going to be on trumpet. We have Mike Babineau on drums. And Garrett had to do a lot of the arrangement work because I couldn't understand the. I tried to chart it myself, and I gravitated toward the fifth. So Garrett did a ton of work on this. You're going to hear the solo version of it today. If you come to the show tomorrow, you'll get to hear the whole thing. Most of the shebang, we're going to overdub sousaphone and some different things on it to give it a real old. We're using sousaphone instead of electric bass. To give you an idea. But I'm really excited to record them all too. Anyway, here's my version of Solidarity. This is going to be a little bit different from the regular band version. I'm going to kind of sing the horn, a little bit of the horn part for you guys, just to keep me in rhythm and keep speeding it up too fast. So here it is, Solidarity. Ba 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 ba. Oh, you always will be slaves until you organize. Workers of the world unite, the dust shake from your eyes. I believe in unions, but the only one for me is the one that stands for freedom and solidarity. Oh, the OBU is out to get the workers of the world to join the one big union, stronger flag it is unfurled. They want the world for labor, and they'll get it too by G. And the only way to get it is by solidarity. Ba 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 ba. Oh, the one big union is growing fast, so workers heed the call. Australia, America, and Russia, we're coming one and all. We'll take the Kaiser too. It's very clear to me just what they want in Germany is solidarity. Oh, the OBU is out to get the workers of the world to join the one big union, stronger flag it is unfurled. They want the world for labor, and they'll get it too by G. And the only way to get it is by solidarity. Ba 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 ba. Oh, the great land of liberty, home of the brave and free. We've got the unions by the score, they're failing up a tree. They scab on one another, as you can plainly see. Now what they want, my boys, is simple solidarity. Oh, the OBU is out to get the workers of the world to join the one big union, strong the flag it is unfurled. They want the world for labor, and they'll get it too by G. And the only way to get it is by solidarity. Oh, the OBU is out to get the workers of the world to join the one big union, strong the flag it is unfurled. They want the world for labor, and they'll get it too by G. And the only way to get it is by solidarity. And the only way to get it is by solidarity. My own choice. I didn't say it before the song, but I chose to sing the song in a little bit of an Irish brogue. I cannot speak any kind of Irish accent or anything, but when I play music, there's some part of my brain where I can do a little bit of accent, even if it does sound a lot Americanized. I love the song. I hope you guys love it too. So the other thing I did while I was here doing research, I love this because I get to promote the Butte Archives. Such a great thing. I did a bunch of family history to find more out about my family since I'm from here. I think it makes it kind of incredible that one of the sons of a son of a son, somebody that was kind of a part in all the mining and for me, the railroading here gets to be a part of this. I looked back at my family history and I discovered that my great-great-grandfather, his name was McManus Kane. I'm going to take this off just for a moment so it's not distracting. He started working at the railroads, at the Butte Anaconda Pacific Railroad in the 1890s. He was originally born in County Mayo, Ireland. He was employed as a stationary engineer at the BAMP. He worked there until 1934. I have his son-in-law worked even longer than 30 years for the BAMP. He was elected an alderman on the first ward in Anaconda. Most of my family, of course, is Anaconda. I have some family from Butte too. And he was a Democrat in politics. I highlighted that if anybody was curious what his political affiliation was. I was. I'll admit that. He had a son, which would have been my great-great-uncle, because you lose the great there in the mix, with it not being a grandfather. He was actually killed, and I didn't know about this either. My mother's here, so she'll probably be interested. This is all my dad's side of the family. A little bit about my parents. They're super interesting people. My mother is an artist, a painter, and an art teacher. My dad is an MMA coach and a karate instructor. I come from a pretty interesting family. Anyway, I found this story on John Kane, who was my great-great-uncle, crushed between an engine on the airline and the timbers of the slum house at the smelters about 1 o'clock this morning. He was crushed between a railroad car and a wall of some sort. And I guess his body ended up being thrown out in front of the engine, and they had to pull it off of the railroad tracks. And then they brought him back to St. Anne's Hospital when he died. He was still conscious when they pulled him off the tracks, but he did live through the night. Pretty brutal story. And then I had another, my dad's uncle, so that would make my great uncle, George Eamon. He had a heart attack at Butte Anaconda Pacific Railway when he was 46. He died on duty out near Silver Bow. And he was a member of the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen. These were all union, as far as I can tell. Some of them, the engineers union was combined with the firemen union back then, which I thought was interesting. I just found that out this morning by going through these again. I have a story about railroaders getting married, how my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother met. That was McManus's Kane's daughter. He was the railroadman in the 1890s, married Angus Eamon, who was actually George's dad that I was just talking about. That he had a son that died out there. And Angus Eamon is a really great story in his own. He was originally from Ontario, and he traveled across the northern United States, and he worked in the Yooper. They did copper smelting and mining in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And he went in for a job there. His born name was Anthony Eamon, right? So he went in for a job there, and they had a sign that said, "No blacks, no Jews, no Irish." And so he convinced them that his name was Angus and that he was Australian. And they hired him. Then eventually he left there and ended up working in Anaconda and Butte. There's a bunch of cool stories, like he got sent out to Detroit by train. Of course, the railroadmen would all travel by train back then. Doing some kind of work for disability causes for people that got injured. I was figuring it seemed like it might have been a kind of a union thing. There's a cool old picture that I found too, where he's pictured with Elmo Verlanik on this. It's Ken Verlanik's grandfather, I believe, and Jim Verlanik. I played football with Jim Verlanik. The father and the son were both centers for the Montana State football team. And their grandpa was a great big dude too. He looks really big next to my great grandpa.
Can you pass that around?
Yeah. See, some of this other stuff is kind of interesting
Which
too.
one's your relative?
The one on the far left
Okay.
looks like an old version of me.
Really?
Remember when his son, my grandfather Bob, passed away, they said he looks just like you if you were older. They used a pretty young picture of him too, so it wasn't like huge. but they have some of the same facial stuff. Angus Eamon was also an alderman and a Democrat in one of the wards in Anaconda. And this was the thing I thought that blew me away. I found an old story from 1959 on the BA&P Railroaders, and Angus Eamon voluntarily retired from the railroad after spending more than 50 years of active service. So he was a railroad engineer for 50 years. Then I had another great grandfather that was a musician and a magician around the area, and his name was Harry Snyder. I found this cool old story. There was enough magicians back then, but there was a magicians union. It was the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And I love this. I have to read the lead to this is so good. It says, Montana magicians, their sleeves rolled up to prove they weren't playing tricks, and their hats covered to keep rabbits from popping out, decided at their annual convention here Saturday to affiliate with the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I just thought it was hilarious. That Harry Snyder actually had a son, and I never knew about this. I kind of came across this on accident. And this was my grandmother Billy's brother. He married an actress from Hollywood. Jacqueline Napoli of New York City and Jerry Snyder of Anaconda, they married recently. And this is her background. Studied music and drama at New York University, was formerly employed by the New York Actors Guild in that city and appeared several times on the legitimate stage. She is presently employed by the Columbia Broadcasting Company. The bridegroom, former resident of Anaconda, is employed by the Los Angeles Times-Mirror, attended Anaconda Central High, and was formerly employed at the Butte Anaconda Pacific Railroad. Super interesting. I used to be a newspaper writer here in Butte. For about 9 years I worked for the Montana Standard.
I like the picture.
Yes, some of these are kind of interesting. There was another really great one when they talked about my grandmother's this dress that she wore at a wedding. Back then, if you wore something really elaborate and nice, you would get a paragraph written in the newspaper. And it was mostly women. When they wore something really nice, they would get the whole paragraph, even if they weren't being married. Really, really cool though, I thought. Well, one of the great stories I wanted to tell, I met somebody besides my dad who had met my great-grandfather Angus before, a couple people I guess. I met Jerry Hansen, the old Marcus Daly Museum historian in Anaconda. I don't think he's with us anymore, but I went down there with my grandpa when I was a kid, and there's like what do they call it? It's like a model that wears clothes. It doesn't move.
Mannequin.
A mannequin, and it's wearing like a great big fur coat. And he brought my grandpa over to it because apparently my great grandfather had a coat just like that. And it was a great big fur coat, like a full length fur coat. It was really something. I was kind of like, men wore that back then. It was like something like a woman would wear now. He told us a few stories, and then when I was at Tech, I took a Butte history course, and it was one of the Harrington teachers. One of you guys might know. Curly Harrington, that's right. He told us, or he didn't tell us the story, but he had Kevin Shannon as a guest, right? And Kevin Shannon was an old railroadman too. So Kevin Shannon came, and before the class started, he was telling us a little bit about himself and sort of talking with the students, which was really nice because most guest speakers just show up and leave, right? They don't always take time to introduce themselves to the audience. And Kevin Shannon told this story, and I just wonder if my grandfather was involved or not. It's that famous elephant story, right? Does anybody know it? See, I don't know how stories like this can go away. But this is great because now you get to hear it from me. You know, the descendant of the person that may have been driving the train that hit the elephant. Back years ago, they had a circus. It was back before the freeway was built between Butte and Rocker. They had a ballpark out there where they used to host circuses. And believe it or not, this is where I kind of question, because it seems like it's bending the truth a little bit, that they had 20 elephants at this circus. Which nowadays, if you see circus, they usually don't have more than a handful. You know, they bring them sometimes and kids get to ride on them and stuff. Back then, they had 20 elephants. And so, they were prepping them for the show, and they were out by the railroad tracks between Butte and Rocker. And with the way that they march elephants, single file, right? So a man leads them with the hook, and then they all get single file, and they tie the trunk around the tail. They'd wrap the tail on the one in front of it around the trunk of the one behind it to keep them in single file. But there was this giant railroad, you know, a massive, 55 tons to a car, you know, it was even more than that, because there's 60 cars on it, driving toward from Butte to Anaconda to go with ore to be smelted. And they lost control of the train. And of course, the elephants were walking across the railroad track, right as the railroad was heading towards them. Anyway, the very last elephant, the 20th one, got hit by the railroad engine. So the elephant obviously died, and the circus went to go settle up with the mining company. They wanted payment for the killing of the elephant, since they were so expensive. And when they got the call at the billing office, they originally were asking for $15,000. So the Anaconda company guys got all pissed off, and they went down to the circus guys and they go, "What are you billing us $15,000 for? We only killed one elephant." And they said, "Because of the way that they walk, you rip the ass off of the other 19. So, because they hit the last one, so they're all shocked, and they all pulled on the one in front of them and damaged a bunch of them. But I love that story. In the process of, very beginning of working on this, I was sitting and having a drink with Carrie, and she was explaining this to me, and I clearly didn't understand exactly what the project was. So I went and I wrote my own song about the loss of mining in Butte, and of course it has the Irish miner. We should kind of characterize it as like a poor Irish miner that is losing everything and wishes that they were back home. Is one good way to kind of characterize the song. And it's called "Oh Dear Hibernia." It was really funny because when I set out practice with my guys last month, we coincidentally had the practice spot at the same place that the ancient order of Hibernians meet in Butte. And so we obliged them and moved to the basement. And we're playing the Harry Lauder song for about an hour straight, rehearsing it and practicing it. And then this other song, I realized we got to the second song. I'm like, oh dear Hibernia now. Right below the Hibernia. Just a funny coincidence, I thought. I'll probably laugh about that forever, even if it really isn't funny. But I'm going to play this for you guys. And so Carrie explained the idea for this, so I took it as a writing exercise, and I do that sometimes. I think anybody that writes should take any kind of project or anything they hear about and just go try it away, not tell anybody, just try it anyway. For fun. Skill building, just like being given an assignment in class, even if you're already done. You can go back and try it a second time, anything like that. It's always good for you. Anyway, this is titled "Oh Dear Hibernia." Oh dear Hibernia, where have you gone? I've been waiting all night, you still haven't called. The plains dried up, and I'm out in the cold. Oh dear Hibernia, where did you go? My pan got lost on the banks of Silver Bow. The sluice here is broke, the water's all gone. The pickaxe is cracked and the hammer went dull. I dig with my hands, but the ground is all froze. Oh, how I miss your eyes of green. Oh, how I miss your smile at me. matches lit and the fortune went by. Bits have been spent down to the last dime. Clouds are all gone, no stars in the sky. Oh, how I miss your eyes of green. Oh, how I miss your smile at me. Oh, dear hot birdie, where did you go? I've been waiting all night, you still haven't called. The flames dried up, and I'm out in the cold. Oh, dear hot burning, where did you go? Thank you guys so much. I think that's it for me performing. I do want to encourage everybody to please go to Clark Grants as well. If you've never met him, he's an extremely interesting individual. He's going to be doing a song with an Arkansas accent about these buildings.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's a super entertaining guy. You have to meet him. All these guys I all know pretty well. John Dendy's coming up as well. A really great bass player and a great songwriter from Helena. I remember I actually wrote a song like listening to one of his songs. I wrote about an experience listening to one of his songs once, and it's one of my favorite ones I've ever written. And then of course Aaron Jennings, the great yodeler, he did this amazing thing. I believe he's performed at the National Cowboy Poets Gathering before too. He's a great artist out in Missoula. Really old-timey guy that I like a lot. He did this, he carried a note for like a full minute, I swear, when he played at the Chateau a while ago. I was like, when's he gonna pull back? But, I want to thank you guys so much, and of course we'll be performing Shawnee and Band tomorrow night at Clark Chateau.
7 p.m. and we have time for a couple of questions if anyone has any questions from the audience.
I don't know, I was just interested in that reference that you gave on that 1955 thing with the railroad with the Verlanic. Were you related to the Verlanics as well?
Yeah. Teresa is it's her husband's family. She works at Northwest. She used to work at Northwestern Energy.
So
I don't know if I'm related to the ones in Butte, but I know those Anaconda ones we are because they told us that was their.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
And we all played football together. And I guess my dad didn't play with Kent, but the generation after we did.
That's interesting.
And
Yeah.
okay.
I'm interested in your little songbook that you had.
Oh,
Yeah,
so cute.
did that go around? Where is that?
Yeah, right here.
So cute.
Whose is this?
It's owned by the archives.
All right.
Yeah, so we've created a little tray here of materials that artists have pulled out that they found in their research and we're keeping together. But that was the inspiration for this whole grant for me, that I learned about this reading a journal article by an oral historian and folk historian who had gone around the state recording folk songs, and there was another article about specifically songs of protest in the Butte mines, and I heard about this pamphlet. He referenced it in there, and I dug around, and it's very rare manuscripts.
Yeah.
There's only 2 libraries that have it, but it turns out we have one too, right here in Butte. So then that started the whole thing.
This is what Ivan Doig saw for work song.
That and the IWW also had a little red book too that wasn't
Yeah,
Butte
the Wobblies had
specific.
that.
Yeah. But this one, what's so fascinating about it is the lyrics are Butte specific, and I just thought that was so interesting, and so that's what's, it became obviously the inspiration for the project, because it's new songs for Butte Mining Camp.
On the very back page of that, it's got like a thing by Woodrow Wilson. Did you see it?
I love that.
Yeah, like approval.
Oh, to the miner.
Yeah.
To the miner, let me say that he stands where the farmer does. The work of the world waits on him. If he slacks or fails, armies and statesmen are helpless. He also is enlisted in the Great Service Army, President Woodrow Wilson.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't noticed that part before. I like the back, it says, by home talent. So that also inspired me. You know, I wanted our home talents to reinvent these songs. So Sean is definitely a piece of our home talent, I would say. And he's gone above and beyond in his research in the archives, which I'm really grateful for. And be sure to check out his concert if you can make it at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And the Uptown Ooks, our ukulele club, will be opening for him, playing a number of mining songs as well. So not to be missed.
The research on the books, these books and stuff, was really fascinating. A lot of it was donated by one woman, by one woman's family.
This all
Her
comes
name
out
was
of
on
the
that. I believe,
Emily
on that.
Kayala file. She was a national level secretary for the IWW, and so she has all her memorabilia in there. And anyone can look at this folder if you ever want to come into the archives and dig through the materials. Just ask for the new songs cart and they'll pull it out. But her file is fascinating. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was really fortunate that family donated that, because a lot of this could have just been lost in history. So that's why it's so important to save the things that our parents and our grandparents had. One of the things I loved about looking at some of these things that her family had donated was how fine the stuff was printed. That a lot of it is still in really good condition, even though it's 100 years old, like that book. In fact, I was looking to see who published them, because I wanted to.
Yeah, local publisher, I'm sure. I don't think it had.
I don't think there was any published, because they would be targeted by company
Maybe
losses.
they had their own press, IWW.
My company thought it would target, I imagine.
Sean, where else do you play?
I go kind of, every once in a while I play open mic at the Silver Dollar. I sort of slowed down ever since COVID happened. Just, I don't know, we never know if we were going to play in front of people again, really.
Yeah.
Some other places I play, I'm playing at Pisser's Palace next month. I'm opening for a super group of country musicians from here in Butte called Prison Baby. And that'll be doing all covers that show. It should be really interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be there. I'm trying to put something together with some cover songs to try to match them a little. It'll be tough though.
What's the date on that one? Remember?
July 16th.
Okay.
It'll be the week after the folk festival. Some other things I played. I used to play I had an open invitation to play at the Colway International Film Festival here in town. I would usually play a party or with my band or by myself for that every year. I used to, play Livingston. I used to love to play in Livingston. The venue that I used to play there, I stopped having music. This happened with a lot of places where they, as far as I know, they don't have music anymore. And that was like a place I loved to play, where my grandparents would have been really proud of me. And I'm playing somewhere where Sam Peckinpah had a suite, where Richard Brodigan used to hang out. I'm extremely picky about where I play too. I like to choose my own. I want to be where people want to hear me, instead of overexposing, playing in rooms where people don't listen. I hate that. I hate when people do it to other people.
You know what else you might like is, I'm sure you've looked at it, is that Goodwill in Walkerville also.
Oh, that bar?
Yeah.
That'd be a cool place to go.
I don't think I've ever played there, but I've been there for music before.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't be afraid to check out some of the stuff. She has it out.
Yeah, feel free to dig through the Emily Kayala file was up there. She was from Finntown, her family.
Sorry I messed up the beginning.
Oh, no, it's okay, I'm just giving you a hard time. You always jumping in.
Here's another one.